So welcome back to the next episode of Truth Be Told, which we're talking about,
Life.
We're talking life. And because I don't think we can really talk enough about it. That was what another thought I was thinking of is it seems like we repeat that same theme. But I mean, I don't know if you can repeat it enough, honestly. And it's not about repeating it, it's about working through that. Because we work through that and it's like, okay. And then you go a week and then it's like, holy moly, 100 million things through my week. And then you come back to that conversation, remember. And then, I don't know, at least I need repetition.
Yeah, I think back about 7 years ago, Max, when you and I sat at one of these tables in our foyer, and you asked the question about life, and that has been the whole process. And the question was, how do I live this life? Mm-hmm. And in the course of that time, in the course now, we think about the fact that this is a whole process, right? I had a friend of mine that looked at Christianity, and she constantly wants to see perfection. She wants perfection in herself, and she gets discouraged and disgruntled and kind of falls away because she's not seeing it. And then she expects perfection in others.
Yeah.
And this whole process in it, right, is where God is doing this work within us. You know, He's refining us. He's making us. You know, we ended the last session with that He's refining us, and it's through life. It's through, I remember the questions you asked. How do I live this life? How do I do it in our business, in our family business? How do I do it with my customers? How do I do it when I'm at home? How do I do it with my friends? And in every one of those relationships, because that's what life is. Yeah. It's all about relationships. And in every one of those relationships, God is doing a process that is refining us. Yeah. And so I want to share a little bit on that. And you think about, I know that you've done carpentry, and I know that you've done some finer carpentry. And so if you have a piece of wood and it's it's rough, how do you get it? How do you prepare it for what you want to use it for?
Well, if it needs to be sanded, you sand. First of all, if it needs to be planed, you plane it, then you sand it, then you down to whatever you need it to be, or cut it, trim it so that it fits.
Yeah, and you really hit on what I want to talk about. So, what happens when you plane it? When you sand it?
Rough it up to some extent.
Yeah.
You're taking a sharp object.
Yeah.
And cutting off the roughness on a rough level, and then on a finer level to the fineness that you want to get to.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm going to say there's a whole process of refining it, right? And you start, if you're sanding, you start with maybe a 200 grit. And then you work your way down to finer and finer grit, right?
And there's a process of heat and friction to do that.
Yeah.
Which is, not uncomfortable for the wood, but in a sense, it's uncomfortable in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the very process. You hit it perfectly there when you said that. Is it uncomfortable? There's friction in it. There's, when God brings us to something in our lives that doesn't look like Jesus. And I've told the story many times, and folks in our church, I'm sure, are sick of hearing it, where there was a circumstance between me and my daughters, and the Spirit of God just spoke to me powerfully one day, and He said, "You know what?" He said, "That didn't look much like Jesus." And so what He was doing in that process was revealing to me how much I didn't look like Jesus, my attitude, what had happened, and so on, how it didn't look like Jesus. And it was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable to go to a 15-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old daughter and to say to them, Yeah, I didn't look much like Jesus. But that process that God takes us through and is taking us through and will continue, like that never ends.
No.
You know, you can't get to the place. I remember I remember as a young man thinking, at what level will I get over some of these struggles? You know, will it happen at 30? Will it happen at 40? But it's a whole process where God is refining us, and it takes a lifetime to do that, and it's not finished then.
Yeah, well, no, and I think the difference between allowing him to do that and not, he's pointed that out to you, but the uncomfortable part of you going and saying that, of the apology or whatever that was, that's the uncomfortable part, but that's where he's revealed it, and then he's expecting you to do something about it, so that he can take that away for the next thing, and
which kind of hurts, because you know there is the next thing, right?
I agree. I think it's important for us to have the mindset that there is a next thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what we run into is like, oh, I've moved past that. Gone, done.
Yeah.
And then when the next thing happens, it's like, what the heck?
Or pretending that now we're perfect, right? Because we've gone through that.
Because we know what's up.
Yeah. And that not wanting to move on to the next step. So you go, yeah, I'm perfect now, and
I perfected that.
Yeah. And I'm perfected that, so therefore I am perfect. And I've had people say, well, I never sin anymore. And I go, really? And so what happens then is you fail to recognize when you're jealous, when you're when you're jealous, when you're envious, when you're covetous, when you're and that process, right? And
because now you're looking at yourself, and you've now stopped allowing God to show you things.
Yeah, exactly.
Thinking about, this is just an example, but the refiner's fire. I can't remember. Is it Malachi or what?
Malachi talks about it. Job talks about it too. He talks about when I am refined, right?
Okay, yeah. So just thinking about the refiners and how they would do this. I'm not a silver expert by any means, but I know as we were talking, thinking about it, it's like, okay, if I am a block of silver or gold, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter what it is, there's imperfections in that block.
Dross in it.
Dross, there you go. And so it could be a solid block.
Yeah. So
to me, it's almost like solid block. When I say, Jesus, come into my life, I'm going to follow you, that's when he turns the fire on. It's like all the imperfections are there in that block, in me, whatever it is, until I say yes. I'll stay a solid block with all of that junk. When I'm okay with that, I won't know any different. That block doesn't know any different. When I say yes and he turns the fire on, it's like, all right, here we go. And then it's like all of the stuff. And now, but the heat, if you will, the fire, the testing, all of the things is what loosens us up in order for him to start pulling us out. But we have to say yes to that in order for that to actually be pulled out, and continue to do that until we shall see him, until he can see his reflection in us with all of that gone. But that's, like you said,
as he turns up the heat more and more, the dross, so that it keeps
more
coming
comes
to
up.
and then the refiner scoops it off.
Exactly.
And like you said, what does he want to see? Well, how does he know when it's refined? When he looks in, he sees his reflection, right?
Mm-hmm. And I think as you turn the heat up, I think that's our walk. There's tests, there's trials, and it's like we think they're going to get easier, like you were saying. Yeah. But that's just simply not the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. And that whole process that God is putting us through, and my dad, going back to the other episode where my dad would say, we all got to grow up sometime, right? And that's the process where God is using to get us to grow up spiritually, to mature spiritually, and when we rebel against that, we remain immature, and we remain childish, and we all have tendencies to do that, right? You know, and there are places where we go, yeah, I can't take this anymore, and sometimes God turns the heat down for a little while.
And well, and I was thinking when you're saying, sorry, it was in and out. Not the is what it is. Oh, we all have to grow up sometime. I was thinking about this a week. I think it was a week ago when I was driving. But we all want freedom, and we all want, and we think, okay, the truth will set you free. Okay, we do these things, and then we think we're free. But I think sometimes we think we're free from consequences, challenges, and those things. But those things never really go away because that is producing the freedom.
Yeah.
But we all have to grow up sometime. The thought that came to mind was, well, the other day I was thinking, freedom. If we want freedom, responsibility is freedom.
Yeah.
So if we take responsibility for my sin, my actions, my whatever, and I own it, if you will. In other words, when I say own it, I mean bring it to God and say, look, this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is where I'm at. And we're not afraid of that. Also to one another.
Yeah.
We're taking responsibility and we're confronting that so we can move forward, so he can move us forward. Only through that we'll have freedom. Through that. If we, for example, in a country, if we say, no, it's not my fault, they're doing that, so whatever, that's on you, and we continually refuse to take responsibility, we're just enslaving ourselves more and more.
Yeah. So the whole process, right, and the refiner's fire, maturing, you know, and again, how we respond to that response shows what our heart is like to the Father. You know, if we become angry at God and we become, you know, almost, God, take this away, and, you know, I don't want any more of this, but allowing him to, you know, to make us more like him.
And we have to respond to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us again on this episode of Truth Be Told, and it's great to have you back for a little while from your adventures in Canada, United States, Max, and it's great. We'll pick this up and begin to chat about life, right?
Yeah, I think that's a continuing
yes,
as life is.